Check one, check one, check one, two. What's up, everybody? I'm back at it. Oh, I'm so sorry. I know I was supposed to be on a few hours earlier. Um, yeah, but you know how it is. Have a lot of different hats that I'm wearing, and it was also the weekend, so I was relaxing. It was important to also relax and get enough sleep. So I did that. Now I'm just up again. Got the my morning started, but I wanted to follow up on a few things. Now, my goodness, I mean, when I look at the news, of course, we have this outline that we're going to discuss today and speak on. But, when I look up the news and I check out social media pretty much every day to see what's going on, what people are talking about, and I saw there's obviously people now doing lives, responding to some tweets or some social media posts, which claim to be from Mexicans, right? Which I have no doubt it's some Mexicans in America, in the U.S. I mean, not America, but in the U.S. Excuse me, for people that are Mexican, because I don't see much of a difference myself in Americans from South America, Central America, or North America ethnically. I don't really see the difference. I see language as being the primary difference, and politics, that's it, not culture. So I view Mexicans as Americans. I view Colombians as Americans. I view Canadians as Americans. I view United States Americans as Americans. And I view um, all of these groups of people as having great ethnic ties through history for centuries in America. Well, sure, there's good and bad on both of that, but the point is that we know who each other are and we know what American is, and we have ethnic ties across America from north to south. Um, European descent, Native American descent, and African descent. That's part of the structure of America now. That history, which is centuries and centuries old. So it's not something to play around with. It's not. We can't play games with that. It's not like all of a sudden we can make up our own history about who these people are. No, it's been documented what the history is. But in any case, there seems to be some backlash from, and I'm sure there's going to be more. And I'm sure it's not just one. It isn't just one group, because there's a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump that had no business voting for Donald Trump at all. And now they are going to feel the wrath. Everybody's going to feel the wrath. But the one thing we're not going to do is blame African Americans, because the data is not there to support it at all. Um, the data clearly states, according to BBC and other news outlets, I mean, BBC is getting this stuff from the Pew and Census, and these are official sources, these numbers. So if your media agency got it wrong, I don't know how, because you should all be going to the official sources, election official sources. What do they call it? Board of Elections. There it is. NEP. Brian Root is right. Source Edison Research. So that's the source. So anyone could look it up. But it says here that 55% of men voted for Trump. You could blame 55% of men. You could blame men. That's a majority male thing. That's a minority um, female thing. You see? 55% voted for Trump. 45% of women voted for Trump. So, but damn near half, I mean, that's a lot. These numbers are too close for what the outcome is going to be. But by race, what is African descent, European descent, or ethnicity? Things like Latino, Hispanic, Asian, other, different groups. Now, check this out. White people voted 57%, white Americans, people who check white on their census and their Whenever asked, you're not always asked, but every once in a while you're asked, right? To verify a few things about yourself for census records. And everyone is asked this, and this is a normal ongoing practice for a lifetime in the United States. It's not something new. It's something anyone who is engaged in anything like paying taxes should understand, or voting should understand, right? Or some other types of surveys, but by the way, or census taken. But as you can see here, only 13% of Black Americans supported Trump. 57% of white Americans supported Trump. 46% of Latino Americans voted for Trump. Latino people cannot blame Black Americans, any Black person in the United States of America, for Trump winning the election. See, this falls on other groups of people. See, had all you folks taken the lead, if you all came anywhere close to 85%, if you came to 60%, even if you just got your numbers up a little bit closer, it would have made to where African Americans are, the entire outcome would be different. The entire outcome would be different. You would not be seeing Trump. But what you see in this Black number voting for Kamala Harris, what you see in that is true leadership, true political engagement by a group, right? And it's so interesting because this group will tell you flat out that there's racism, discrimination, prejudice, gender bias, all types of discrimination going on. Black people will tell you that. Hence why 85% could clearly see that something's wrong with Trump. Trump means you harm. Trump wants to hurt people. Trump wants to hurt women. Trump wants to hurt Latinos. Trump wants to hurt minorities. Trump wants to hurt Asians. Trump wants to hurt disabled people. Just by reading the news, didn't you know Trump hates disabled people? Don't you know he made Nazi like statements about disabled people? That should have bothered you all enough to vote for Harris a lot more than you did. That should bother people. But it didn't. It didn't bother people enough. It didn't bother Hispanics enough. It didn't bother white Americans enough. It didn't bother Asians enough, Asian Americans enough, and it didn't bother other people. But I would like to look into the other, because all groups aren't really covered in here. So I'm not trying to throw a blanket thing at anybody. It's not. There's no point, because with this number right here, it's obvious who's not to blame, and it's obvious whose thinking is distorted and skewed greatly and extremely. It's obvious Black Americans know what the hell they're talking about politically, because they're the only group that saw the danger of Trump for what it truly, truly is. So Trump has started his tariffs. And this is a message going out to Mexico. This is a message going out to Colombia, our Colombian brothers and sisters, um, family. This is a message going out to our Canadian brothers and sisters and family. This is a message going out to our Danish brothers and sisters and family, Greenland brothers and sisters and family. Everybody that Trump is attacking, right? Right now. Because you can see he's more obsessed with attacking people than anyone is actually on earth at this moment. Um, why he chooses to do that, you could believe what he tells you, or you could put two and two together and figure out, no, the danger is deeper than that. This is a conspiracy, what's going on with Trump. You see, of the highest security order, you see, and people are going to start seeing it. It's good to see that nation representatives in different nations see this for what it is largely. But do the people really see this for what it is? Or are the people still pretty much half blind, operating with one eye. This is the polling data. This is it. You know, age 54%. So age, nah, yo, the key factor here is race, y'all. The key factor here is race and color. To be honest with you, that's what I'm saying. The key factor, the black factor, you know, hence the non-black factor, right? The black factor lost this election. Yes, they're the ones who lost the greatest because more of those people supported Kamala Harris and are not going to get their way according to their wisdom, political wisdom. But other groups of people got their way. 57% of white Americans, they're getting what they voted for Trump. So they're getting Trump as the president with their political wisdom that they possess. Hispanic people, yeah, pretty much half of you in the United States of America agreed with Trump. Pretty much half. A little under half. Yeah, but look, there should be nowhere near this number. This represents your political wisdom, the mass of your political knowledge. That's what these numbers represent. Asian people, too. Asian people did a little better than Hispanic people. Kudos to y'all. You should clap your hand, smack yourself on the back, clap yourself on the back. Take a round of applause for yourself. But this number here in the middle, this is that number should not even be there. Undecided or don't know or 10. I don't know what this number represents. This must be some 5% that's missing or something. That 5% should be over here. That would help. But hey, but other people also did not do that well, did worse. You see, other groups of people did worse. I wonder who these groups are. That would be good to know. I'm gonna find that out, but I'm not concerned with that right now. Um, oh, check this out, Black Americans. You should clap yourself on the back because look who you are compared to. The other greatest number is college graduates. So generally, as a people, as a political force, Black Americans are comparable on large more than any other group to college graduates thinking. And hell, we might be even smarter, apparently. Far more intelligent, far more intelligent, far more politically astute, far more politically aware. And if you're more politically astute and more politically aware, you're probably more knowledgeable in general. It's just facts. 2 seconds. Let me make sure I check the audio here. I didn't do that. Let me check the audio. Put my coffee down for 1 second. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Let me see here. Let me check the audio. I'm still laughing at this, but these are the facts. These are the facts, y'all. I'm sorry. Look at this. These are the facts. Please tell me what I just said is not facts. I want to hear someone say it's not facts. Not because I get off on arguing or debating. I'm just curious. Why is what I said? How would that be wrong? You know. But here we go. So now let me check the audio. See what I'm doing here. Okay, got good. The audio is working. All right. So thanks to Tabitha Tells, I saw she used this map too. But it's important to remind people of this electoral map here. It's very important. Okay, so let's get to the regular program as it is. Let me see here. Can I open this up from here? Right. Okay, we got real evidence that votes were tampered with, y'all. Then we got Trump versus Denmark. The Danish prime minister had a phone call that didn't seem to go too well with Trump as it normally goes. I mean, that's no harm to her because, or to her intellect, because a phone call can't go right with Trump unless you're a psychotherapist. And the prime minister of Denmark is not a psychotherapist, I don't believe. And so, therefore, doesn't stand a chance against a sociopath of this order. Trump wants 3 terms, right? Trump wants 3 terms. And now there's a few other things on the agenda also. All right. There's the deportations that have now begun, which I'm pretty sure is the reasoning behind why you're getting some reactions from the Hispanic community because they're not the only group though. They're on the front line with deportations, but their voting seems like they weren't really concerned about that, or that they approve more of deportations than any other group. Damn near 52, or not any other group, but 52, 46%. Basically, I'm talking about non-white Americans. Um, After non-white Americans, it's Hispanic Americans and it's others. Okay, so immigrants, y'all, largely supported Trump. This is what this is. Outside of white Americans, the second largest group is immigrants. People of non that are not classified as white and are not classified as black. A lot of you guys vote like you like Trump. That's very strange. A lot of you voted like white males, white nationalist males. I mean, there's so many things one could take away from this, and I'm sure you got your own ideas, but I'm just stating mine. Like when I see this, it makes me wonder. But I'm so happy that the data is there because if it wasn't there, we wouldn't be able to go back and point this out when shit is happening and people go into chaos and people forget. Like if you are African American, if you are Black American, print this out, fold it up, put it in your wallet, on a piece of paper, print out. You could laminate it in plastic or whatever else you want to do to protect it. And when somebody that's angry running around in chaos is like, oh, what the fuck, man? Oh, what's going on, yo? They're about to kick us out, and they come up to you, just pull the piece of paper out and say, hey, man, I did what I know. Too bad nobody listened to us, and pull the card out. Too bad nobody listened to us. But is that a surprise? Is that a surprise? Is it a surprise nobody listened to us? What do you think? Let me try this one out. No, it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise at all, is it? It's not a surprise. It's absolutely not a surprise. It's shocking. I didn't think it would be this bad in terms of the amount of disconnected people politically, in terms of their knowledge and understanding of politics, even just their own humanity. I mean, how could you listen to a person say the things that Trump said and then you vote for him? He said some of the most vile, hateful things I've ever heard in my life out of one person's mouth, by far, by far. Seriously. And but yet a lot of people like that kind of language. Black Americans didn't find that kind of language funny, didn't find those policies funny. But now it seems like other people feel differently about that. And I really don't, I don't know what to say about that, but in any case, let's go over to the deportations. Deportations. Okay, so they went over to Colombia. You know, Trump, like a like a like a person who enjoys media attention, so that you don't focus too much on what he's really after. Because you see, Trump knows that this, in my opinion, Trump knows that this is not helping the U.S. But a storm is a good place to hide. It's hard to be seen from above, right? It's hard to be monitored in a storm. And I think that's basically Trump's theory, how he goes about things. He is not interested in tariffs. He's interested in anything that can bring political strife, that brings headlines to the newspapers. So he wants there to be so many fires that that you will be so busy, you can't put the main fire out. That's what this is about. So Trump is going to start trouble with anybody. And if you're smart, you will not go following him. You won't chase after him. You won't take the bait, because it's obviously not something in your best interest to fight about over the media. You know, if I was a country like Mexico, well, I'm not going to give Mexicans advice. I like the approach of Mexico and Colombia and Greenland and Denmark. I like their responses, but I would just say it's not going to come down to everyone knows Trump is a lunatic. So at this point, it's not going to come down to you trying to convince people through the internet, or have an argument through the internet, or through the media, or on TV, debating punchline questions from media outlets that only benefit from strife, right? And chaos to get their viewership up. It's not going to work. The arguments in the media are not going to work. Just take the fight to Trump. Short statements, calm statements, and and action. Period. Action speaks louder than words. And if you look at Trump, his words speak more than his actions. You see, he actually says way more than he does, but you could expect that harm will still happen. But you got to keep your eye on the ball, and you got to remain who you are, remain keep your own character, because it's obvious that Trump is a bad character and intends on doing bad things, and more bad things are going to happen, and it's going to be happening to Americans inside of the US. Now, there's probably going to be another bird flu, right? Americans are running around right now. Even red states are thinking about they're going to be fighting something. No, you ain't going to be fighting shit, because let me tell you, you don't know. Right now, Trump is going around trying to remove vaccines, trying to remove the CDC, trying to remove the health administration from any type of oversight, from paying attention to what is going on, from it doing their job that the taxpayers paid them to do. He's trying to make them ineffective. So why do you think he's trying to harm that apparatus of the U.S. government? It's obvious, because if you harm FEMA, if you harm the CDC, guess what? When a new virus comes around, they won't be able to organize to help as many people as they did, as quickly as they did the last time, even with Trump as a distractor and a slow moving president. At the end of the day, these organizations are prepared. Trump doesn't want them to be prepared for an epidemic. It's obvious the first time he didn't expect that they would be so prepared, because even though he slowed down and screwed things up so much, they were still ready to be effective, and and were able to be effective. And when Biden became president, it just became way more effective, because now you don't have a problematic president denying American citizens what they deserve and what they paid for already in advance. Yes, you don't have these institutions and these departments operating off of borrowed money. Not really. No, they're operating because people already paid into the funds. They already paid their taxes. If you didn't already pay your taxes, these places would not exist. So Trump is essentially robbing you out of your hours of work, labor that you already put in to pay your taxes, to have these institutions come in, step in when you need help, like FEMA, when you need help, like COVID. Trump is basically robbing you out of the hourly wage you had to pay those taxes. How many hours do you think that is? How many hours can you give away to somebody for free, for nothing? That's up to you. It's your choice, it's your vote. But apparently, a lot of Americans like the idea of paying taxes for something they don't get, because that's what Trump is showing you. He's saying, I know you paid taxes on this already, but I'm going to shut down FEMA. He's not saying he's going to give you your money back, though, is he? Nope. Nowhere in the conversation is Trump talking about giving you your tax dollars back that helped to create FEMA, that helped to create the CDC, that helped to create all of these governmental departments, agencies, right? But let's see here, more nuttiness, and I'm almost guaranteed that the news media is not that great, but hey,
My name is Munzid Ali.
here we go.
Donald Trump says he has issued his first tariff on Colombia after 2 U.S. deportation flights of undocumented migrants were not allowed to land in Colombia.
Now, let me explain something about Colombia here, in case people don't know. Colombia. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, here we go. Colombia is the number 2 biodiversity nation on Earth. So, big up to Colombia. Big up to Colombia. Um, that means, okay, for folks that don't understand what that means in practical terms, that means a lot of medicine companies rely on Colombia more than any other place on Earth, or second to any other place on Earth. And that place is not the United States. So what that means is that a lot of the foods, a lot of the medical, the things that come from plants that medical labs use to create medicines and things like this, you're going to be paying more money for it now, American citizens. Now, Colombians might, in the short term, lose a little bit of money, and they work very hard for their money in Colombia. Trust me. They should, and also they're very cool people. Colombians are mad cool with Americans, mad cool with with North Americans. They're mad cool. Period. They got wonderful culture. They know how to stick together when things are hard. They should be proud of what they've been able to accomplish and be proud of the society that they've built. Of course, it's not perfect. Of course, Colombians also rally and protest about fairness, but that's part of democracy. And of course, the military should be cautious about cracking down on these kind of things. But overall, Colombia has been an ally of the U.S. for a while. And the U.S. and American citizens, U.S. citizens, have benefited greatly from that relationship. Greatly. You know, you can't blame Colombians for U.S. foreign policy, right? And for a long time, the foreign policy was destabilizing this region. It was supporting, covertly different groups and exacerbating the issue. For example, dealing with the cocaine, quote unquote, cocaine epidemic or drug on war. I mean, hey, if you know why a lot of the farmers grow the cocoa leaf, if you really know what's going on, then you would understand just burning this stuff down is not going to solve the problem. And the U.S. government was approaching it like that? No. But finally, they made agreements with the Colombian government to help utilize some of these coca leaves in other ways so that this could be used for medicine instead of just narcotics and open drug market. You see what I mean? And that allowed a lot of farmers to unionize, to organize, so they don't have to support the cartels. So a lot of, don't forget, cocaine is not only being produced in the hills of, Colombia. It's Peru, it's other, Venezuela, it's a whole lot of nations. Even so, heroin ain't being produced in South America. That's central. That's Mexico. But in either case, if you want to solve a problem, then you need to know where the root of the problem is. And the root of the problem is not the poor people. That can never be the root of the problem. The root of the problem can't be the poorest Mexicans. The root of the problem can't be the poorest Colombians. The root of the problem can't always be the poor people. Just like the root of the problem in the United States of America and the root of the problem with Trump being elected is not Black Americans, because we, among over all other groups, supported Harris 83%. Everybody else is like 50%, 40% supporting Harris. You know what I mean? 55% supporting Harris. No, African Americans supported at 80 something percent. What is it again? At 85%. Only 13% of Black Americans voted for Trump. You see what I mean? So there's a lot of different intersections to consider here. Yeah. So now let me play this. Let me let this rock out a little bit.
CNN's Steve Contorno is joining us now live from Florida. Steve, tell us more.
Yeah, Fred, just moments ago, Donald Trump reacting to the news that Colombia had blocked planes carrying undocumented migrants from delivering those individuals back to their home country, and Trump now retaliating with tariffs and threats of more tariffs. He said in a post on social media, quote, "I was just informed that the 2 repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, Gustavo Petro, who is already very unpopular amongst his people. Petro's denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States." So he has then goes on to say that he is taking some action against the Colombian government, including a 25% tariff on goods coming from Colombia immediately, and he's threatening to raise that to up to 50% next week. He also...
All right, so hold on, I'm gonna rock that out. I'm sorry, I just want to look at some data real quick.
is calling for a travel ban and immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and sanctions on party members and family members that support the Colombian government. So, Fred, this is an early example of how Donald Trump's immigration crackdown is already colliding with his foreign policy and trade proposals, and the first of maybe more to come, Fred.
And then, Steve, how immediate are we talking?
Oh,
I think it was
Sorry about that. I'm just typing something here.
proposals, and the first of maybe more to come, Fred.
And then, Steve, how immediate are we talking?
Well, he says in the post that these the 25% tariffs are, quote, an emergency and will go into place immediately. And then in 1 week, the 25% tariff will be raised to 50%, which would be quite a steep climb. Of course, Trump has already proposed sweeping tariffs on many of the U.S.'s trade partners, including a 25% trade tariff on Mexico and Canada that he says might go into effect next month. He is also promising a trade tariff on goods coming from China in recent weeks.
Okay, so this is a good start to be able to examine how Trump uses tariffs in his foreign diplomacy, right? Now, you can see that Trump, he issues threats, but it doesn't mean that they actually happen. So he's already issued the threat to Mexico and Canada, but He hasn't made an emergency tariff that starts immediately. No, they don't even know. It could be a week or two. They're not even, you have to wait. If a tariff is not there, then it's not active. When it's active, then it's active, and you will get the retaliation to be active also. Now, but he did mention that they have an active tariff, an emergency one against who? Of all people, Colombia, U.S. ally. Not Russia, not Iran, not some other, not Belarus, not you know what I'm saying, some other place where they don't want to have any type of elections, right, or fair elections. You know what I'm saying? No, it's not that at all. It's not Venezuela. You see what I mean? He's not worried about that. By the way, if you listen to the response of the Colombian president, Venezuela is a neighbor of Colombia, and if you know anything about the history and even the politics um, of the two nations, today, in terms of modern times, right? There's not a whole lot of difference between a Colombian and a Venezuelan. Sure, slightly, there are some slight differences sometimes, but they're not all totally different because, the closer you get to the border, you have people that could have ancestors that are from one side of the border or the other, a grandparent or a parent, even from one side of the border. They both speak Spanish. You know what I mean? So they're in the same region. They're direct neighbors. So the difference would be kind of like what the US has with Canada. There are some differences. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to make it sound like these differences are so steep. But if you listen to the reaction of the Colombian president, which I'm going to play, he has no verification of who these people are. So who came to label them as Colombians in the first place? Man, yeah, I'm sorry, it's just yeah, but uh let me see here. Yeah, so actually, that's something that I want to follow up on and find out. Like, you can't label a person Colombian if you don't have any real evidence that proves they're Colombian, right? People that go overseas and they don't have papers about where that prove where they're from, they can be from anywhere. Just because they say they are doesn't mean they are. So normally what you do is you call and you present whatever evidence you have of these people, their passports, their birth certificates, something that proves, that they are Colombian nationals, not Colombian ethnicity, Colombian nationals, meaning Colombian people that hold Colombian citizenship. Otherwise, if you don't have that, you can't send them back. I even think that might even be against international laws, but let's listen.
Weeks if they don't negotiate a new deal with the United States. So clearly, this has been top of mind for Donald Trump for more than a year. He has said he will use tariffs to get in the international players to act in the best interest of the United States and to.
Okay, so this is what he will be, what a tariff could look like, because of course he doesn't give you details. He doesn't want people knowing details because he tries to hide failures. Hope you can hear this.
The United States imports a variety of products from Colombia, including those related to medicines, food, and other sectors. Below is an overview of key imports. 1. Medicinal products. Pharmaceutical ingredients. Active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, for manufacturing drugs. Medicinal plants and herbal products. Colombia is a significant exporter of natural and herbal remedies, such as extracts of medicinal plants. Cosmeceuticals. Products that combine cosmetics and pharmaceuticals, often containing natural Colombian ingredients like coffee or botanicals. 2. Food products, coffee. Colombia is one of the largest exporters of coffee, particularly known for its high-quality Arabica beans. Fresh fruits. Bananas, avocados, pineapples, and limes are among the top fruit exports. Flowers. While not food, Colombia is a major supplier of flowers, which indirectly supports the agriculture industry. Processed foods. Products like frozen fruits, canned goods, and snacks are increasingly exported to the US. Cacao and chocolate products. Colombia's high-quality cacao is used in premium chocolate products. 3. Agricultural and natural goods. Sugar and sugar derivatives. Sugarcane-based products including raw and processed sugar. Seafood. Limited exports include fresh or frozen fish and shellfish. 4. Miscellaneous exports. Essential oils. Used in aromatherapy, cosmetics and medicinal applications. Nutritional supplements, including products derived from plants native to Colombia, like maca or acai. Trade context. Colombian exports to the US are supported by the US-Colombia Trade Promotion Agreement, CTPA, which has facilitated tariff reductions and boosted trade. The USS is one of Colombia's largest trading partners, and agricultural and medicinal products play a vital role in the bilateral trade relationship. Let me know if you'd like more details on specific product categories.
What does Colombia import from the USA? Colombia is number 2 biodiversity in the world, y'all. So when they're telling you what's being exported, these are things that they, among most other people, can easily produce and well produce. And in some cases, they're the place that only produces certain medicinal products that are on that pharmaceutical companies produce for medicines, things like this, and other things. That's what biodiversity means: plant and animal life. You know, so number 2 in the world makes Colombia an extremely important ally and trading partner. Now, on the backside, what does Colombia import from the USA? Let's see.
Colombia imports a wide range of goods from the United States, reflecting the strong trade relationship between the two countries. Here's a breakdown of key imports. Saad Chow 1. Machinery and equipment. Industrial machinery, used in manufacturing, mining and agriculture. Electrical machinery, components like transformers, generators and electronic equipment. Construction equipment, bulldozers, excavators and cranes. 2. Vehicles and transportation. Automobiles, both passenger and commercial vehicles, including parts and accessories. Aircraft and parts, for civil aviation and cargo transport. Railway equipment, limited but includes components and technology. 3. Agricultural products, wheat and corn, essential grains for food processing and livestock feed. Soybeans and soy products, used for animal feed and food manufacturing. Pork and chicken, processed and frozen meat products. Dairy products, cheese, milk powder, and other processed dairy. 4. Chemicals and pharmaceuticals, fertilizers and pesticides, essential for Colombia's agricultural sector. Pharmaceuticals, both finished medicines and raw materials. Industrial chemicals, used in manufacturing and various industries. 5. Technology and electronics, computers and software, laptops, desktops, and software for personal and industrial use. Telecommunication equipment, smartphones, networking hardware, and communication systems. 6. Consumer goods, food and beverages, packaged foods, snacks and beverages like alcoholic spirits, clothing and apparel, high-end brands and textiles. 7. Energy products, refined petroleum products, such as gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Natural gas and related equipment, for energy and industrial use. Trade context. The US-Colombia Trade Promotion Agreement, CTPA, plays a significant role in facilitating these imports. Many products from the US enter Colombia duty-free or with reduced tariffs, making the US one of Colombia's top suppliers of goods. Let me know if you'd like details about any specific category.
Okay. So check this out, y'all. Sorry about that. I was just on the phone here. But check this out. Now, this should be concerning to Americans. Maybe this is an attack on American farmers because see, these are the things that Colombia exports from us, wheat and corn. So they won't be getting our wheat and corn from what is this? What is this about? I mean, I think this right here is very simple. Um, Colombians do use a lot of wheat and corn, but you have to understand if they turn to someone else for wheat and corn, right? If they turn to someone else for wheat and corn, that only hurts the United States of America. Sure, they may suffer with getting a little food, a little bread on their plate, some corn in their meal, a little bit. But again, think about this, y'all. You're talking about the number 2 biodiversity place on earth, Colombia. To be honest with you, if anybody is in a position to keep food on their plate, it's Colombians because they produce more types of food through plant life than anywhere else on earth. So, you know, it may not be ideal for wheat growing. It is. I mean, I don't know how ideal it is for corn, but they make a decision about things to grow based on trade. So sometimes they don't grow things not because they can't, but because it's easier to let someone else. It's more profitable to let someone else use their land for that and have it imported, while they use their land for something else and have it exported, y'all. So, but just knowing off the bat that Colombia is number 2 biodiversity in the world, that means number 2 animal and plant life. This right here sounds like it's going to hurt the U.S. farmers more than anyone else. Wheat and corn will be sanctioned that's going out to Colombia. It will be tariffed. So Colombians will be buying less of this because they have far less money to waste than American citizens. So they will make the adjustment and not buy wheat and corn. Soybeans. Colombians will be able to make the adjustment to not buy American soybeans because, quite frankly, Colombian people the average cannot afford higher prices for soybeans, but they are the number 2 biodiversity nation in the world, meaning they produce more types of plant and animal life than anywhere else, mostly on Earth, than the United States. Pork and chicken, y'all. They got alligators. They can eat alligators. What the? They got pork. They can produce pork and chicken too. Listen, y'all. You cannot produce what they can produce in terms of food. The U.S. cannot produce what Colombians can produce. The U.S. is burning up. Where you going to produce it at? What, you going to produce it in Florida where it's about to start snowing on your orange juice? I mean, really. Americans better, Americans better march their ass down to the Capitol, kick in the Capitol door, basically, since it's legal, since Republicans seem to think good people do that it's okay if you feel like you're being violated, your rights, your constitutional rights. If you feel like they're being violated, y'all, if you feel like you've been wronged, if you feel like you have a grievance, according to Republicans, hey, everybody can just march down to the Capitol, kick in the door, run over some police, and make Congress do what they want it to do, whether you like it or not. Mr. President, Mr. Congressional person, isn't that what you did? They did all that by themselves, right? Right, Mr. President? Americans are in for a very hard hit, harder than any existential threat could ever come close. Chemicals and pharmaceuticals. This is what we sell to them. So, okay, they're not going to get fertilizers and pesticides. Okay. Again, Colombia is number 2 biodiversity on Earth, meaning they produce and have more plant and animal life. They have more types of plant and animal life than anywhere else on Earth, or there's only one other nation that has more than them. Pharmaceuticals, finished medicines, and raw materials. Okay, so they import some raw materials for their medicine companies, and they import some pharmaceuticals that are finished, right? Yeah, okay. Well, they're going to start buying more pharmaceuticals from other places. I mean, they could buy, it's not like American pharmaceuticals are the cheapest on earth. No. And again, when you're the number 2 biodiversity place on earth, do you know what a lot of Colombians do for what is this sickness, diabetes? You know, diabetics. You know, a lot of Americans take this. What do they call it? You know, it's something that Biden and Harris worked on to get the cost of it down. Insulin, right? But do you know in Colombia, just on the city streets, this is how plentiful this plant is. There's a small plant that you might think it looks a little like a grape or something, but the texture is not like a grape. It's a little, the texture is tougher than a grape, but it looks like a grape, but it doesn't taste like a grape. Do you know that this is just a common plant they eat for diabetes to control the sugar levels? Yes, that's what it's known for. And it grows even in the cities in Colombia, Cali, Colombia. You just pick it right off a tree. Same place all them cars is driving around, motorcycles driving around. Just pick that fruit right off the tree and eat it if you have issues with diabetes. It's so plentiful. It is even growing on the streets of the urban cities, of the favelas, the red areas in Colombia. Colombian people know how to get along with less than United States Americans. United States Americans aren't used to sharing. They're not used to recycling. They're not used to giving their neighbor a cup of sugar or a spoon of sugar. They're not used to just coming out on the streets and having a party. And by the way, you know, they're not used to going to schools where a lot of the stuff is recycled things. They're not used to living life the way Colombians do. The Colombians make life great out of far less. And I'm not saying that having issues with poverty or having issues with hardship is fun. No, but what I'm saying, when you see how they deal with it, you get instilled with a form of pride that United States American citizens, sorry, the far greater ones among you, the far number, do not have. If you got hit like Colombians are hit economically, you would not survive because culturally you're not used to it. You have not adapted to it. You're going to have to learn how to adapt. But it ain't going to be like Colombians because the United States of America got guns everywhere. These people might kill each other first. Yes, more guns than Colombia got. The average Colombian is not proud of guns. Technology and electronics, computers and software, laptops, desktop software. Yeah, they need a lot of new things and they get it. It's cheaper to get it from the US because it's close and it's going to be good quality. Right? I don't know how much they get, but they don't have the money for the average Colombian can't afford this stuff, to be honest. A lot of it's going to be used. I'm pretty sure. Not that that's a problem, but consumer goods, food, beverages, packed foods. When I was in Colombia, I saw very little American products, to be honest with you. Most of the products were coming from other countries, to be honest. Um, clothing and apparel, yeah, high end apparel, yeah, but they can rock bootleg shit. Can you tell the difference between a bootleg Nike shirt or Adidas shirt in Colombia versus a real one? Can you tell the difference in the quality? I think there's a tiny bit of difference, if any, that's concerning to anybody. Some of the bootleg shit is better. I don't think this is ridiculous. They're talking. This is like stuff rich people I don't think this is even the average Colombian that's really going for any of this shit. Fertilizer and pesticides. Well, hey, you know how many nations will be happy to help you out on that? Look at this. There's somewhere in there where we talked about milk, right? Is it up here? This is from the U.S. Food products, coffee particularly high. Okay, but there's somewhere where I believe. What does it say? What does Colombia import? Okay, so where is the details about the food, beverage, packaged foods? Okay, what about milk? What about milk imports to Colombia? I mean, listen, the world is smaller today than it ever is. Of course, it's smarter to trade with people that are close to you because you save on wasted material supplies like gas, transport, shipping, in a tank, out of a vessel, in a vessel, out of a vessel, hit the road for 100 more miles, all of this shit. You save money when by reducing those transport costs when you trade with your neighbors. Trump is doing the opposite. He's making other people that don't need to rely on us look somewhere else. That's what he's doing, and they're not relying on us like, well, they're just trading with us, saying, yeah, it's smarter to just trade with them. Why not trade with with Americans? Keeps the prices down on goods that we need. Hey, that makes sense. But Donald Trump is saying, no, you need to go trade with someone else in America or somewhere else outside of America because we don't want to trade with you no more. I mean, again, all right, let me see here. What about milk? Milk imports to Colombia are important of its trade in agriculture and food products. Here's an overview of key aspect of milk imports. Milk powder. Okay, now let me see if they list where the countries are. Yeah, they do. Look at this. Major suppliers. We just dealing with milk, right? United States, thanks to the U.S. Trade Promotion Agreement, CTPA, many dairy products, including milk powder and cheese, enter Colombia with reduced or zero tariffs. Right. But they're selling this. What are they talking? They acting like reduced tariffs is like some bar that you measure things on. Zero tariffs. Yeah, they don't have zero tariffs. That's a problem. What are you talking about? It's trade. People pay taxes on. It's livelihoods. This industry. It doesn't need to have tariffs to be profitable. What the hell? You know what I'm saying? So that's why they call this a success. Because it's working capitalistically on its own. There's enough interest and enough need for it to work. It doesn't need tariffs. You don't have to force it. You don't have to control it. It's just working fine. Now, look who's next. European Union. The EU is another key supplier officially for specialty dairy products and high quality milk powders. Yes. Yes. Guess who's probably going to start selling more milk to Colombia? Guess who's probably going to immediately increase trade with Colombia? The EU. Whom won't have tariffs that have anything to do with aggression or political fighting or any of this bullshit. All the EU is going to do is look at the quality, look at some other aspects. Not they're going to look at trade, obviously, just how much can we sell. But if the EU benefits more from it economically, they don't. Why would they tariff Colombia? They don't even want Colombia tariffing them. They don't have an issue with each other. New Zealand, Argentina, Uruguay. See, Colombia has different trading partners that can pick up the slack. What does the US have when they're attacking their main trading partners? Listen, y'all, trade and policy factors. Demand for milk and Colombia's domestic dairy industry does not fully meet demand, right? For milk powder, particularly for industrial uses and reconstitution, which drives imports. Tariff rate quotas. Under trade agreements, certain volumes of dairy imports, milk powders into Colombia at reduced tariffs. Once quotas, so that's them reducing it themselves. They're not putting tariffs on the US. They're not putting tariffs, not like that. You see, once quotas are exceeding, higher tariffs may apply. There you have it. You see, so they have it reduced because they need these products, but they're not attacking their neighbors saying, we're going to put tariffs on you because you ain't giving us what we want. Price sensitivity. So, milk is a big thing there, but then again, hey, what is it to ship your milk from the EU? The EU's already doing business in South America with milk. Let me tell you, the EU is happy to pick up the slack with anything anybody needs that the US does not feel happy regarding their trade with. I mean, that's just it. The EU produces tech products. The EU produces food products. The EU produces fertilizer. The EU produces weapons. The EU produces a lot of different things. And the EU can even send experts to your country to see if there's ways that they can increase your own production of things. Yeah, engineering projects. The EU, by the way, machinery for farming, the EU produces at a huge rate. They're a major competitor to the US. So you don't want to sell your machines, your farming machines to Colombia, Trump? Okay. Guess who will? Guess who's happy to? China, EU, everybody else is happy to. Why shouldn't they be? Something wrong with being happy to work on capitalism with people? Something wrong with that, Trump? Yeah. So we talked about Colombia. Now, enough about Colombia, which is somebody Donald Trump, the first victim of Donald Trump's trade tariffs is Colombia, our neighbor in South America, one of our strongest allies in South America. They lie at the base of Panama, right, which is the tip of South America. Colombia is accessible by land to the Atlantic and the Pacific, right? That's another thing to understand. Colombia should be a strategic ally of the United States of America if we have leadership with any brains. First of all, the media should be informing the public of what this bad trade deals, and what attacking Colombia can really mean for the average American citizen. The average American citizen has a lot to learn from the average Colombian citizen. I'm talking about cultural exchange. I'm talking about positive things. You should learn each other to avert this kind of stuff. And of course, the United States Americans need to learn a lot more from Colombians, because if you have a president that's attacking one of your main allies, the number 2 biodiversity place on earth, located at the tip of South America, at the base of Panama, something is incredibly wrong with your thinking if you can support that. So remember, Venezuela has been adversarial to the US. Colombia hasn't. Colombia has been a trading partner. They've been working together on all types of stuff, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they get attacked. That's just bad politics, insane politics, self-destructive politics. That is nothing more than the United States being self-destructive. Let's see here. Now let me go back. Let's see here. Let me just cover one more thing about this Colombia. Let's see here.
Trump says he's directing his administration to take immediate action against Colombia's president and his supporters, including tariffs, a travel ban, and visa sanctions. The move comes after Colombia denied entry to two C-17 military planes carrying undocumented immigrants, forcing the planes to turn around midair. Colombian President Gustavo Petro said Sunday that the U.S. cannot treat migrants as criminals and that Colombia would accept migrants on civilian planes. The news comes just days after the White House posted these images of migrants boarding a sea.
But that's not all that he said, though. He didn't just say we accept them on civilian planes. He said they need to be identified properly. And there's a real reason for that, because anyone can say that they're from a place. Speaking Spanish doesn't mean you're Colombian. Having worked in Colombia doesn't mean you're Colombian. Having grown up in Colombia doesn't mean you're Colombian. Just like none of those things mean that in the US. But here they're just blanketing, sending people to Colombia because they say Colombia. Maybe would rather go to Colombia than Venezuela, dumbass. Who would want to, if you know you're getting thrown out of the country and you're Venezuelan, would you say you're Venezuelan? No. I don't think that makes much sense, and you definitely don't want to be sent back to Venezuela. You would much rather be sent to Colombia, your neighbor, a neighbor country, right, where they speak the same language as you, where maybe you can blend in a little easier. Although Colombians know the difference between Venezuelans and them, but other people don't necessarily know. Donald Trump wouldn't be able to point out who's a Venezuelan and who's a Colombian on site, on language. You see, this is but I'm gonna find that. Let's go.
C-17 for deportation, with the Trump administration hailing the move as a promise kept.
We're getting the bad, hard criminals out.
Two flights carrying migrants landed in Guatemala City on Friday, but a planned flight to Mexico was blocked by the Mexican government last week. And Brazil's foreign ministry on Sunday called the process a degrading treatment of the Brazilians deported from the U.S. The State Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment. ICE told the Journal that it plans to use the military planes to increase deportations. But some are questioning whether the use of military aircraft is necessary, since the U.S. has been using passenger planes like these for years to deport migrants. So here's what we know. The C-17 is a large Air Force plane that's typically used to transport troops and cargo, like this tank. While the Air Force says it's designed to hold about 100 paratroopers with their gear, it can also carry more than 800 passengers if needed, as seen here during the U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan. On Friday, two C-17s with about 80 migrants each arrived in Guatemala City from Texas and Arizona. As for the price tag, the Department of Defense says the C-17 costs about $20,000 an hour to operate. That's more than double a typical repatriation flight, which costs about $8,500 an hour, according to ICE. Both President Trump and his border czar Tom Homan have pledged to use the U.S. military to enforce immigration laws. And the White House is deploying frontline combat troops to the southern border.
Every time you enter this country illegally, you violated a crime under Title 8, United States Code 1325. It's a crime. So if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem.
All right.
Terra is the IT painkiller.
Let me see here. So actually, people really need to look this up themselves. I'm going to flip over here and read a few facts here. Now, let's see here. Right off the bat, what people need to think about and back up from, like, this seems like exciting news reporting, but there's some things right off the bat that I could see they don't mention, which American citizens and others that are following this topic should focus on a little bit. What is an asylum seeker? What is an illegal immigrant? And how are they processed? Asylum seekers often come to the United States or any country without paperwork. that can verify where they are from. Why could that be? Their paperwork could be damaged. Their government could be hostile towards them. Um, they could be under death threats from the government. If they don't have papers, who are they to turn to get papers? But after all, they're seeking asylum. So that makes sense, right? Yeah, it makes sense because people are fleeing things like that, their own governments, their own countries. There's minority groups fleeing other parts of the world too. Is the minority group supposed to go to the government that is attacking them and killing them to get papers, or are they supposed to flee? You see? So there's an issue with how these people are processed, but not just how they're processed. And you shouldn't just get upset like, yeah, see, we need to learn, change how we process these people. Yeah, but there's certain things that are inherent that you won't be able to change. And that is the reality of what it is like to flee. Flee for your life. What is that like? Often for many people, that's fleeing without your own documentation of who you are because you didn't have a choice. It could have been you're dead if you try to go back to your home. It could be you're dead if you show up at a government office. So the expectation of being able to identify these people, you need to understand that's a long process. That takes time with a lot of questions. That's not something ICE does. That's not something any government agency can do in a week, in a month. You can't do that. That takes a long period of time and a lot of people, a lot of communications to try to verify information, use other means to verify who these people are or where they're from. But you can't claim to know if you don't have any way of knowing. And if they tell you they're from Venezuela, how do you know? If they tell you they're from Colombia, how do you know? If they tell you they're from Nigeria, how do you know? If they tell you they're from Mexico, how do you really know? You could be a Colombian ethnic and not be a Colombian national. You can be Mexican ethnicity and not be a Mexican national. You can be Venezuelan ethnicity and not be a Venezuelan national. You can be any type of ethnicity and not be a national from that country where the ethnicity comes from. There's plenty of people like that. There's loads of people like that in the world. Loads. And it's like that with immigrants and asylum seekers also. You see, so let me go over now to this last little ditty. Let's bring this up.
The US is identifying individuals for deportation to Colombia through a combination of legal and immigration enforcement processes. Here's an overview of how these individuals are typically identified. 1. Immigration records. Undocumented individuals. People apprehended within the US without valid immigration status. Expired visas. Individuals who entered the US legally but overstayed their visas. Immigration violations. Those found in violation of US immigration laws, such as working without authorization. 2. Criminal records. Criminal convictions. The US prioritizes deportation of individuals with criminal records, including felonies and repeat misdemeanors. ICE cooperation with law enforcement. Immigration and Customs Enforcement collaborates with local, state, and federal agencies to identify and detain individuals with outstanding deportation orders. Biometric and identification databases, fingerprints and photographs, collected during immigration processing and matched against criminal and immigration databases. Shared information with Colombia. The US may share biometric and identification data with Colombian authorities to verify citizenship. 4. Nationality determination. Birth certificates and passports. Individuals are identified as Colombian nationals based on documentation provided during their time in the US or obtained during investigations. Consular verification. The US coordinates with Colombian consulates to confirm nationality, often requiring Colombian government approval before deportation. 5. Supposed or disputed nationals. In cases where individuals lack proper documentation, their nationality may be assumed based on language or regional origin. Spanish-speaking individuals from certain regions may be presumed to be Colombian. Statements from the individual. Admissions or claims of nationality during processing. Family ties or records. Information about relatives in Colombia or ties to the country. Challenges and controversies. Misidentification risks. Errors in determining nationality can lead to wrongful deportations. Data accuracy. Ensuring the information used for identification is reliable and verified. Colombian government cooperation. Colombia often requires thorough documentation to accept deportees, complicating the US process when records are incomplete. Let me know if you'd like more details on the identification or
So-
deportation processes.
So what's happening here is that it's not only Colombia. Colombia often requires thorough documentation to accept deportees, complicating the U.S. process. Well, every single country on earth requires that. You know, that's just what it is. This is not special to Colombia. Often requires through documentations to accept deportees. It's very simple. Who are these people and where are they from? And there's a reason why countries need that information. Why? Because there's a problem with bringing people to countries without any documentation, without anyone verifying who they are, without the government even knowing who they are. Why should you want to accept people? Listen, y'all, just flip this around. If you're American, let's say I say I'm American and I just show up in the United States and I just keep telling them, yeah, but I'm American. But they can't find anything about me. But I'm American. But who are you related to? Oh, I was brought up as an orphan. Yeah, but where? In Massachusetts. My name's Roger. I don't remember. When? I don't remember. There's all kinds of things that could be going on. But let's say that I do know every single thing. And I'm saying I'm American. Oh, this is my mama. Oh, this is my daddy. Daddy dead, mama dead. Oh, this is my cousin. I had a cousin. They can't find it. I don't really know her real name. Her name was Aunt Shelly or Maple or something. She lived down here in California. Okay, great. Where'd you go to school? Oh, the school records are burnt up. Something. Let's say they have all that stuff, but you just don't have a passport, never had an ID. You've been out of the country, but you were born to American parents. You lived in the U.S., but for some reason you just have no ID, no one to verify you personally, right? What are they to do? Do they just accept that you're American? No social security number? I sound American. Don't have a passport, don't have a birth certificate. Am I an American citizen? Am I a U.S. citizen? Should the U.S. government, should Trump accept me without a U.S. passport? Without a birth certificate and a U.S. birth certificate, should Trump accept me? And this is what's going on. So, it doesn't just harm, it doesn't just complicate it for the U.S., requiring documentation to accept deportees doesn't just complicate the U.S. processes when records are incomplete. That is an expectation that the U.S. needs to manage and see, as it's not always possible to identify these people. And since we don't receive people that we can't identify, why should anyone else? You see? And so that's what it is to live on Earth. That's the best that governments on Earth have provided people, and that's just where it is. So they will deny. They don't want people, you just bringing hordes of people over and dropping them off and saying, hey, these are your people. How do we know? We don't really know, but they sound Colombian and look Colombian, so here it is. They speak in Spanish and they look in Spanish. Here you go. You know what I'm saying? That's really what it sounds like they're trying to do. some kind of redneck American approach to dealing with people. It's, you know, MAGA approach. That's for damn sure. All right, now there's one more. I want to hear something about one more question. Did the president deny um, deportations? Did the Colombian the president deny deportations based on lack of lack of identity? Let me just ask that last question before I come out of this and go to the next one. Let's see here. Yes, the Colombian president Gustavo Petro initially denied entry to U.S. deportation flights, but his refusal was based on concerns over the treatment and dignity of deported individuals rather than the issue related to their identity. He objected to the use of U.S. military aircraft for deportations, emphasizing that migrants should not be treated as criminals. President Petro offered to facilitate the return to deported Colombians using civilian aircraft, including his presidential plane, to ensure they were treated with respect upon arrival. In response to Colombia's refusal to accept deportation flights via military aircraft, U.S. President Donald Trump imposed 25% tariffs on all Colombian imports and threatened to increase it to 50% if Colombia did not comply within a week. Additionally, the U.S. implemented travel bans and visa revocations for Colombian government officials and enhanced inspections for all Colombian nationals and cargo from Colombia. Facing these economic pressures, President Petro agreed to accept the deported individuals and offered the use of his presidential plane to facilitate their return. Following this concession, the U.S. paused the implementation of the tariffs and other sanctions contingent upon Colombia's continued compliance with the agreement. This incident underscores the complexities of international relations and challenges. Look at this. And Trump calls this a victory. You see how petty of a victory he goes for? That's very, very interesting. How he could see that as a victory because after all, they're not a superpower. Secondly, they're a big trading partner, and they're not going around bullying people. That's not what Colombia has been doing in their history. You see what I mean? That's not, if you know about the history of Grand Colombia was broken up. And what's left of it is called Colombia, part of it. And then the other part is called Venezuela today. The other part is called Panama today. The other, you see, and what's the other nation that was a part of Grand Colombia? But so they're in a process of something else. They're in another stage in their history. They're not in the stage that Trump seems to think that they're in. Like, when you just go around, attacking your neighbors and doing, making beefs and making fights. This guy outmaneuvered Trump because he was able to show that Trump needs an ego fix. He needs a win, or he's willing to just harm even American citizens. That's how people are looking at this guy. They're saying this dude is willing to harm American citizens just over needing to be seen like he's doing what he promised by bringing some Colombian refugee or Colombian immigrants back to Colombia on a military plane. Like he needed that, and he didn't get it. But Trump made a concession. You see, this is how ridiculous it is. Trump made the concession too. So who wins? Who made the concession that helps more people? The Colombian president is the one who made the concession that helps more human beings, more U.S. citizens, more Colombian citizens. And what did Trump need? Who did Trump help? Did Trump help more people? or did the Colombian president help more people in his bargaining? Who did that? Um, you see, so where's the explanation? You see, if there was a real problem with trade with Colombia, which there isn't, Trump wouldn't just concede and say, "Okay, good enough for me. You come with your private airplane and take them back. Fine, no tariffs. We'll halt the tariffs." See, his trade tariffs are not even about bad trade. His trade tariffs are about his ego only. His ego is so fractured. This man is petty. This man is looking for a petty win. Yeah. All right, damn. 128. I can see I'm gonna have to start another live. Let me go to the next one now. The next country that he threatened, that would have been, well, he threatened so many. Oh, Denmark. I'm sorry. Let me go over to Denmark real quick. Danish Prime Minister conversation. They're saying that this conversation, that Trump was angry, yelling out of his mind on the telephone call with the Danish Prime Minister, who's a woman. This is crazy. Look at this. It doesn't cause stir. You know, people aren't in a stir. People are looking at this dude like he is crazy. And why did he yell? Is it because she's a woman that Trump yelled at her? Because he doesn't seem to want to yell at anybody. He seemed to be, even when he's, you know, issuing, even when he was talking to Hamas, he was not even yelling. Look. Of course, there's all kinds of news agencies trying to spread, you know, they need views. So this is like clickbait. A lot of this Danish PM Trump wrath over Greenland, you know, okay, clickbait. Not joking. Trump's fiery green, you know, times of India. You see? Okay, let's go to, this is longer. This is 2 weeks ago, so that's not good. But let's see here. Trump's fiery call. Let's go to this one. See what they say. All right, let's go. This is just the other day. This was released. In a call with Danish PM, Trump demands to buy Greenland. Tensions rise over as Trump presses Denmark PM over Greenland. This guy doesn't understand anything. Greenland is semi-autonomous territory of Denmark. Are they going to destroy Greenland? Denmark is a long-time U.S. ally and founding member of NATO. Yep. Greenland is also home to a large U.S. armed forces base. Exactly. That was negotiated by Denmark, pretty much. So Denmark has been working with the U.S. on security. 45 minutes call between Trump and the Danish PM. Trump ramps up threats to gain control over Greenland. NATO ally Denmark utterly freaked out in crisis mode. I don't know if they're in crisis mode, because this is where you got to put two and two together. I think the United States of America is in crisis mode. The people of the United States are in crisis mode. The people in Denmark are not in crisis mode. The people in Greenland, they might be in crisis mode, right? But everything that's happening is not taking place in the media either. So everyone knows that it's improper for a diplomat to yell and scream at another diplomat, or to even yell and scream in public, or to another, in your communication with another diplomat. That's totally improper, because diplomatic language is, you're not supposed to make things worse. You're supposed to want to make things better. And that's where your language comes into play. You have to be conservative with your language. And when a person isn't conservative with their language, it suggests that they don't govern well. So even if you don't agree, you don't have to yell and you don't have to fight. You can disagree and then move on with your disagreement and your actions politely. Because after all, this is not about the US people and the Danish people or the Greenland people. This is literally about Trump. Only. It's about Trump. He never talked about Greenland when he was running for the presidency. He never talked about these things. The only thing he said about NATO nations is that they should pay. They're not paying 100% of what they're supposed to pay. Some are paying 99%, and that's not good enough. I want to see them pay 100. Well, they do, but it's not because of you. It's because they already had that plan, and this is not a this treaty, the NATO treaty about regarding how much these NATO nations bring into it, right? Submit to, contribute to financially. These are non-binding agreements. They're not penalty agreements. They're not agreements like set their goals set for the basic understanding of how it would function in good faith. It's not a penalty thing. And the reason why they do it that way, because there's a lot of treaties internationally that are done that way. But number one, a lot of the cooperation is not based on force. It's based on being voluntarily reaching these goals. So it was already understood that when they set these goals, all the nations wouldn't instantly be able to do it because they have to ratify changes with their own people. That takes a year or two or 3 years. So when you get behind on something, the process takes voting in a democracy. It's not something, just like the Congress controls the purse. The Congress controls the purse in every one of these independent nations, even though they're NATO nations. Their parliament is controlling the purse. So you can't just instantly say, yeah, we want 500 billion to go to the military today, or we want 1 more billion to go. Because if they're already paying 5 billion and they're only under by 1.5%, right? And things are functioning well, then you don't do it until you have these conversations, but it's still a process. You don't do it by order. It doesn't happen by order. Not if you respect democracy. The people have to communicate about it, and that takes time, right, to reach the goals. But again, it's non-binding. These economic goals are non-binding because the strength in NATO is cooperation. It's not. It is if you cooperate at 80%, you're a huge success on Earth, the biggest force on Earth. If you operate at 90%, 70% even, you see. So you don't even have to be at 90% to be effective. And I think that's the issue here that they're having. And that's every country's free right. How much do they invest? And NATO is not a country. NATO is a treaty. Okay? It's a trade organization. What is it? North Atlantic Trade Organization? Exactly. It's there to protect trade, security and trade, So it's a working in process. And Trump doesn't understand the process. So he just saw these treaties totally different from everyone else that was involved in the treaties from the beginning. So Trump lacks some insight on NATO, and the public does too. Maybe the media's job is to inform the public about how did NATO begin? What were the theories and the founding fathers in NATO's ideas? How did governments deal with each other with implementation from the start? What goals were set? What goals got reached over time? How long did it take to get to this stage, to the next stage? This kind of stuff. So people can kind of see how NATO functions practically, how it's been functioning practically. Now, of course, you can make demands, but why would you make demands publicly through a threat when you can just pick up the phone and say, hey, just to let your government know, I'm going to be moving towards asking Congress to make an official request to NATO about paying equally, and just so you have some advance warning. Boom. That's diplomatic talk. Then the diplomat can go back and talk to their parliament without it being a scandal, without it being a global event, a global conversation when there's a lot of other conversations that could be happening, right? So Trump obviously wants this conversation more than anything else. This conversation suits Trump more than anything else and anyone else. You know, why it suits him? He seems to play these cards very, very cheap. So I suspect it has nothing to do with acquiring Greenland. Really, it's just something that can take up some media attention, something that can make people have to make adjustments for and move around for. While Trump doesn't have to do anything, he can just sit down and be an old angry man, right? Sociopath, shitting in his pants every day, he can do that. And I think that makes him feel powerful because it's like he wants to be like a king among people that, by the way, Denmark has a king, but the parliament of Denmark is not run by the king. The nation is not run, the laws are not governed by the king. The king is a figurehead. And of course, whenever there's a new election, the person who wins goes to meet the king and the king dubs them the prime minister, essentially saying, yeah, this is a legitimate thing that happened here, right? In the kingdom, democracy prevails, right? Democracy is working, but the governance is, and the laws is done by parliament. It's not the king. The king does not interfere in politics. So, but Trump wants to be like a king that does interfere in politics. And while being a billionaire and getting every benefit that most American citizens don't, and most citizens of any of these nations don't get. Most of the citizens of Denmark do not live like Trump and don't have the capacity to ever live like Trump, but don't want to live like Trump because they don't believe in that way of doing things. They believe in investing in education so everybody can get access to education and improve themselves, whether they like things or not. They have the opportunity to improve themselves and then go and make other things better. Everyone has universal health care here, has health care. So you have the right to get help if you're sick, if you have health issues, you have the right to get help so you can move forward and then help others. That's how Danes typically think. And they think that way about each other, and they think that way about others, the world, right? So they see that model, the Nordic model, as being a good capitalistic model, a responsible capitalistic model that keeps in mind human values and human what do you call it? Not human expectation, but human potential. You see what I mean? So it's important that people take a look at that when they're communicating about the prime minister here in that conversation. But let me see what else they say here.
Og slutter. Er i vores øjne en beslutning, der starter og slutter i Nuuk og i Grønland. Grønland er grønlændernes, ingen andres. Mutti, du har været meget klar i dine ord. Det er Grønland, der selv skal definere jeres fremtid. Det har vi meget, meget stor respekt for fra dansk side, og det vil jeg egentlig gerne opfordre til, at alle har.
Begge vores parlamenter har vedtaget selvstyreloven, som faktisk giver Grønland muligheden for at blive selvstændig, når det på et tidspunkt ønsker det. Og ud fra det har vi jo altid arbejdet for hver eneste dag for at komme tættere på, for det er den proces, som man har ønsket. For det er Grønland og grønlændernes. Vi vil ikke være danskere, vi vil ikke være amerikanere.
He said Greenland. This is the prime minister. He said Greenland of Greenland. He said Greenland is for the Greenlandic people. We don't want to be Danish. We don't want to be American. We want to be Greenlandic. And the Danish government is working with them on that and has been already. That's been the international conversation regarding Denmark and Greenland, how it is autonomous and how power is being turned over to the Greenlandic people in a model that can be sustained, in a secure manner, right? And here you have, after they've been making this progress, right? Now all of a sudden you have Trump of all people, Trump, the guy who doesn't respect American values, even he doesn't respect American law. He doesn't pay taxes. He lied to the American people. He speaks down towards women. He talks about women like they're property. This is not a president who respects women. This is not a president who respects human beings. This is not a president that respects the law. He is the one making these claims and requests of Greenland and Denmark. So therefore, that speaks to the character of the individual making these claims. And you can clearly hear these are not the culture. Danes and Greenlandic people do not share those cultural traits that Trump seems to promote.
Vi vil selvfølgelig være grønlændere.
Yeah, what is his fixation? What's his fixation? I mean, what's this really about? It's picking on somebody who's weak so he can make news articles and maybe get a win. It's actually in a pathetic bully way. It is smart, because it's like saying, how much do I really have to do myself suffering to take over Greenland? I don't have to suffer personally. The two militaries would have to interact with each other, who are used to being allies and backing each other up on every single thing that we've ever confronted for the last 50 years of our history. Sure, they would have a interesting situation, but what do I care? It's not bothering me. That's how Trump is looking at it. And he's saying, well, if you don't bow to me publicly, then there will just be the threat that we do something like this. And let's see how you react with those two options. And that's really an insane way of doing things, because, first of all, it has nothing to do with the outcome. The outcome, you have to understand something. It is far less likely that the U.S. military, even with this guy, would even begin to take up what Trump is speaking on. He can talk it up. Pete Hegseth can talk up whatever he wants to talk up. There have to be military generals that are willing to break even the U.S. law and international law to even do this. So that's what's awkward about it. I would really like to hear the news media in the U.S. and other places talk about this. What does this mean to the U.S. law? Is it legal what Trump's doing according to U.S. law? Can he just invade and take through force a sovereign nation? Or is that against the U.S.'s own law? And the same question, is that against international law? Right? I mean, it's just a question that should be discussed. I'm not saying be biased about it. I'm saying at the very least have the discussion. And that discussion doesn't really seem to be a priority of media. Excuse me. Greenland occupies a key position in a warming world. Right? Climate change, scarce resources, and tense geopolitics. Climate change is, changing Greenland, of course. And Greenland has a lot of lithium. It has large lithium deposits, right? And that fuels L vehicles, L cars, electric vehicles, batteries. That's what they use to make batteries for cars and for vehicles, right? And for other products, right? Lithium. That makes you wonder, why does Trump need all this lithium if he's against L cars? That's the obvious question right there. Why is he so possessed with it? It's actually kind of weird watching that. Hey, Andrea, Grand Rising. Yeah, I started late again. But I'm here. But it makes you wonder, like, why does Trump need that? Because he's telling everyone in the U.S. he doesn't think too positively about L vehicles. So why is he worried about Greenland? Because that's the one thing Greenland has: lithium. That's really what they have, is their greatest natural resource is lithium. The food and the fish, that's going to be depleted if you just allow people to run amok and fish all they want. Nobody's fishing all they want anywhere anymore because the fish have been depleted. So it's obvious, if you're going to go into a war, you want to get something out of it. You don't want to just get more land to defend. You don't want to, I mean, what do you get out of it? You already got a U.S. military base there that was done long ago out of agreements of past presidents, not out of an agreement of Trump, not out of his doing. You see, it wasn't a fight, an argument, a threat to get a U.S. base onto Greenland. No, that wasn't a fight or argument. That was a conversation among diplomats that saw a shared benefit and agreed on a shared benefit. Trump doesn't agree on a shared benefit. Trump is threatening to take, but Trump doesn't need lithium because he doesn't believe in air vehicles. Remember, he wants to pump oil, y'all. He wants to produce gas. He wants to, even though the U.S. is the most, it produces more gas and oil than anyone else on earth. He wants to produce more because he doesn't believe in L vehicles. He doesn't believe in L cars. So what's he need lithium for? So you can see, let me tell you guys something. Whatever Trump does, it's going to be taken back. It's not even going to be taken back. It's going to be given back, because you don't invade, take over a sovereign nation and expect that you're going to sew the whole deal up in 4 years yourself. It ain't going to happen. You're going to have 20 years like Afghanistan. And didn't and look how that turned out. And didn't Trump say he wanted to avoid foreign wars? Isn't that the platform he ran on? All right, y'all. I'm going to come right back to you. Give me 10 minutes. I'm going to set up the next stream and I will be right back. Yeah, this is getting interesting. And I just think people need to keep the conversation going. We need to keep informing people, keep asking questions, good questions, and take a break from the silliness on social media right now. Don't be so up somebody else's butt, because you're about to be ravaged. Take some concern over your life. Stay away from the stupid conversations and the bickerings and the arguings and stuff, and think about your actual goddamn life for a second. I'll be back.